If I told you someone was being discriminated against by the colour of their skin, you'd probably think I was talking about racism. But what if this discrimination is within a particular racial group? What do we call it when two people of the same race discriminate by skin colour? This is colorism. Colorism is prejudice or discrimination against individuals with a dark skin tone, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial group. After being told I'm not white enough to be my own ethnic background and that I'm quote-unquote too black to be Pakistani descent by a Pakistani himself, I figured it was time to expose the underlying issue of colorism that occurs within society, race and cultural groups, and how it impacts the lives of others more than we know. I spoke to my friend Sarah and my friend Diane about their experiences with colorism, and Dr Sarah L Webb from University of Illinois about what colorism is, its impacts on individuals, and the importance of it being brought to light in this day and age.
So, what do you define as colorism, and how does it differentiate from racism?
Good question. So colorism is discrimination or prejudice or oppression based on the skin tone, the actual color, how light it is or how fair it is versus how dark or dusky it is. And sometimes it intersects with other features such as your hair texture or your eye color or the size of your nose or the shape of your nose. But it's different from racism because people can be the same race but have a different skin tone, right?
Racism is outside perspective looking in. Colorism is within your community. That's how I would sort of differentiate it.
I think colorism as a whole, if we think about how it currently operates in the world, I think a lot of it has to do with white supremacy and the spread of white supremacy through various forms of globalism. But when it comes to modern day colorism and the global international industry of like skin bleaching and Hollywood and Nollywood and Bollywood, right, and music and things like that, where we spread images on a global scale.
With colorism, it's within our communities. It's your aunties, it's your uncles, it's your cousins, it's your mum, it's your dad. It's everyone looking at you thinking, why are you darker than me? So I think colorism is within the community, whereby racism is outside.
People experience it most often within their own race. Research has shown that even other races it can happen between races as well. But within your race, it's more obvious because most of us spend most of our formative years, most of our childhoods around people of a similar race as us. So we come to know it most obviously because within our own racial groups. But it can also happen between racial groups because people, for example, people who believe that white is prettier, right? Or that lighter skin is prettier. They're going to believe that about all races of people, right? So they're going to think that no matter what race you are, you're more beautiful, you're more attractive, or you're more intelligent, or you're more trustworthy if you have lighter skin and straighter hair.
So I know you've done a lot of research, like not just in colorism in America. I know you've done it quite around all around the world. So tell me what you know about this, about colorism within South Asia.
That's a good one. So I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things we talk about when thinking about colorism cross-culturally is that what's considered dark varies from community to community and region to region. And I think that can be a barrier and obstacle to us having international and global conversations. And then it's also contextual because even in the United States, some people's families might tend to be very light and they were the darker person in their family, even though they were considered light in the broader spectrum of the US. But in the South Asian community, I know that there are legacies and histories of casteism and colorism, that go back before the colonial period. But I think after colonization, that sort of solidified it and it became an industry, right? It became part of the economy. Speaking of the economy, why there's such a multi-billion-dollar skin bleaching industry, skin lightening industry, right?
We have a product as well called Fair and White that we use. It has pigmentation, so we're able to sort of change our color. The more times you use it, the more lighter you become. When I was younger as well, I used that product because I wanted to become lighter. That was my main thing, and unfortunately it bleached my skin a little bit around 2 years or so. So my face is like lighter than the rest of my body because I wanted it to show the world that I was lighter than I actually was.
I grew up to understand and learn that they don't bleach because they don't love you. They don't love themselves. It comes from a place of like they have this beauty standard, like in Australia, right? When when we first came to Australia, there was no foundation color of our skin tone. There was no like we were not very valued.
Story. When I was younger, I would say like around kindergarten or so, I thought, well, okay, let me just explain my logic and then I'll tell you the story. Alright, so white people, no offense, Caucasians, they, it's sort of tan under the sun. So I thought it was the same, like opposite for us, so it'd be under the moon. So I would search up whenever there was a full moon. I'd be like, oh, I'm going to get my bikini on. I'm going to lay under the moon so I can become lighter. Now, I'm not going to lie. I did this for a couple of years. Nothing was happening. I was like, why isn't this happening? Like, it's logical. It should work. I remember my dad came out one time. He's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm trying to become light. Like, I'm trying to be lighter like Auntie Cheryl. And she's like, and my dad's like, it doesn't work like that, love. Like, you're beautiful the way that you are. But it was just a really dumb moment in my lifetime where I was like, I wanted to become lighter so badly that I was doing that for no particular reason at all.
But I guess that story kind of shows how colorism is it affects people in a way. Colorism in pop culture. So I'll just read out some lyrics to you. So, wear them yellow bones. I don't want no black beep. I'm already black. Don't need no black bleep. What are your thoughts on lyrics like that?
It's just disgusting. And the thing is, within pop culture, you hear these comments made every single time.
So when you hear these lyrics written by Kodak Black, what are your first thoughts about it?
It sounds like internalized hatred. So when he says, I'm already black, I don't need, a black so-and-so, then it's indicative of the fact that he doesn't like his own black skin, right? So he believes that his black skin is ugly or unworthy or unvaluable. And so he wants to get away from that, right? I see it as an indication that he is trying to escape himself, right? And because he can't literally leave his own body, his way of escaping his own blackness is to partner with a woman who is not black.
For example, I think A$AP Rocky commented on girls wearing particular lipstick color or like something in regards to that. But these comments are made regularly and it's not fair at all, the fact that they sort of, revolutionize what young people think of themselves, and they start using those products like Fair and Lovely or Fair and White because they want lighter skin complexion, which isn't, good.
So a lot of people at first, when Destiny Child's first disbanded, they assumed that Kelly Rowland was the more talented one between the two. Do you think colorism has any play in that, considering that Kelly Rowland was always a darker-skinned woman in the group?
I absolutely think colorism was a factor in Destiny's Child and how that group dynamic played out. And then also the career trajectories after Destiny's Child disbanded, I think had a lot to do with colorism. My first and foremost reason for thinking that is I think it's always a factor. And again, some of these things are implicit or unconscious, or like they're just normal parts of the culture. So I think people's biases might make them like an artist more than another artist who's darker, right? I think that also lends that validity to the claims about colorism. Beyonce's dad in his book that got really, really famous, talked about how his daughters benefited from colorism, from having like lighter skin.
Do you think the topic of colorism is often swept under the rug and it's not really approached as much as other issues?
Yes. Only because it's not talked about as often in schools, and children are really educated about it as they should be.
I do think it's often swept under the rug. 2020 seems to be ripping the Band-Aid off, so to speak, or lifting the veil. There are way more conversations about it now than there ever were, especially back in 2013. It was really hard to find a serious discussion about colorism back then. And so it was definitely something that was swept under the rug. People used to say it was a distraction from racism, right? Or it's a distraction from other more important issues. Or they trivialized it to just be like a petty self-esteem issue, or you just need to think that you're pretty, or like a popularity contest.
I think we do need to bring it up into the light more.
I definitely think it's important to speak your experiences on colorism for yourself, right? To get it out and own it without being ashamed of what you might have gone through or how you might have felt. And then also the possibility to connect in a very genuine way with someone else can be so powerful.
Where do you see your work going in the future, Sarah?
Part of my goal over the next few years is to just continue raising awareness, continue spreading the word so that more people know to submit and have the opportunity to present. But I also, I'm writing a book, right? And I want to dedicate more time, like all of the small individual blog posts I've written and all of other people's works that I've published, right? I'm definitely wanting to gather all of the work that I've done in some form and put it into a story, right? To actually have all of my story in one place, right? And be able to deliver that to the world.
Colorism not only affects the way a person is treated, but also affects their self-image and the opportunities they are offered. With a beauty standard that does not fit all, colorism creates a rift of what people truly are and who society wants them to be. It's more than just a buzzword.